following is a long-form critical evaluation of the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya. It is covered under fair use as a transformative critical work. If you have not seen the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, I suggest you do so before continuing to watch this video. You can find it available online at many places, or you can spend $200 for a physical copy as Bandai has shut down and the movie is out of print. A few things I want to say about the title screen here. First and foremost, it's obvious that this is a sequel to The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. So the show's already telling you that if you don't get the reference in the name of the title back towards the original series, you probably shouldn't be watching this. Secondly, I just think it's so unique for a title to be shaped in this way. It's telling you, it's basically spoiling the plot for you. It's telling you everything that's going to happen in the movie. What's going to happen? Haruhi Suzumiya is going to disappear. So why even watch the movie in the first place if we already know what's going to happen? So many movie titles are like Akira or Ghost in the Shell, where it's some mysterious thing that you'll figure out later. Whereas with the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, you've already figured it out. So now you're watching the movie not to see what's going to happen, but how it's going to happen. This is just the first in a long line of examples about how the movie manages the audience's expectations. And we'll absolutely see more of that going forward. So it's something I want you to be on the lookout for. Okay, so this right here is probably the best line in the film and the most important line in the film, so I don't want to ruin it for you. I want to let it play, and then we can come back and think about it.
The morning of December 16. It was so cold, and I mean cold, that if you took an ice pick and plunged it into the ground, you'd shatter the earth into a million pieces.
So this line, I want to attack this line in so many different ways. But first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that Crispin Freeman does a fantastic job as Kyoani. I think he's better than the original Japanese, and I think he absolutely nails the sort of sarcasm and wit. So first, in this line, we have the morning of December 16th, and it's the date. It's important because of the events that are going to happen in the movie. You need to understand the chronology of it all. When he comes back in Tanabata, and then it's mid-July, it's like, oh, it was December 16th, and we were told that right away. Second, it establishes that it's so cold, and that's the reason Kyoani doesn't want to get out of bed. So it sort of forwards the plot. Past that, it frames us in the disembodied voice of Kyoani talking to us. It frames us inside of his head. So we know where we're going to be for most of the film now. And the visuals that you see coming up here as the eye opens on its side, we see that we're literally inside the head of Kyoani. And past that, it tells us about Kyoani's personality, what type of person he is. He's this narrator, but he's like fanciful and unreliable, and he comes up with these crazy ideas. So he's not objective in any way. And then finally, it sticks this idea in your head. They're saying if you took an ice pick and plunged it into the ground, you'd shatter the earth into a million pieces. And that's exactly what Yuki does over the course of this film. So all of those things put together in this one really cool, really concise just line from the film that sets the tone, tells us where we're going to go, and tells us how we're going to get there. It's the most perfect line in perhaps all of anime. Well, if you didn't believe me about being inside the head of Kyoani, these next couple shots make it blindingly obvious. There's a little bit of CGI there. I don't mind it. Never mind CGI. But this shot right here, I love the upside down clock. It's almost as if time's about to get turned upside down. So immediately we were struck with, for lack of a better word, a very cold color palette with lots of dark blues and grays. And that kind of fits in with Kyoani clutching his blanket tighter, and there's nothing hot in the visual design of the film. And one final thing to take note of from this overhead shot is that line of light crossing Kyoan's body as he falls out of bed. We're going to talk a lot about light and where it comes from in this movie and what it signifies, but just keep that in mind for now. It's coming from outside, crossing onto Kyoan. So, I love this cute little gag of him rolling back into his blanket. I think that's adorable. It's also kind of the first real joke of the film and tells you that while some serious things are going to happen down the line, not to take things too seriously. Well, yet. So we're not quite done with that little beam of light yet. We have this small little segment here where Kyoan, complaining about it being cold, looks up at the beam of light, and then the camera cuts right to his window, showing that the light is external, and that without the light, Kyoan is cold and unhappy. We've got a little money saving technique here, only showing the top of Kyoan's head so they don't have to animate the rest of the classroom, which is pretty cute. Another thing, we're going to talk about light a lot. Look at the fluorescent lights above Kyoan. They don't provide really any light to the scene. They're just sort of less gray than the rest of the world. And you know one other thing that shot doesn't do? It doesn't show you the seat behind Kyoan. But then there's this split-second cut to that seat and a full pull back so we can see the rest of the classroom. And in fact, the seat we know to be occupied by Haruhi Suzumiya is empty. Kyoan doesn't seem too fazed by this, so we assume it to be normal. However, what it is doing is setting up withholding Haruhi from the audience until the big reveal in the club room, which is kind of the whole point of this intro scene. Kyoan has this really cute monologue here about the world being out of whack and the big guy upstairs confusing prayers. So he's invoking a lot of images of deities, which we know Haruhi to be, and of the world not being as it should be. Again, going back to that first line of the film. And then he ends on this one line, "It's not like I'm going to do anything about it." Of course, this whole movie's about inspiring action in Kyoan and how he motivates himself to come to a place where he does take action about things. Kyoan's run-in here with Koizumi assures us that everything's natural in Kyoan's world, and we also get the first mention of Haruhi, so we can confirm the eponymous disappearance hasn't occurred yet. And again, we see the status quo of Kyoan's relationship with Haruhi. It's really all in that 1-0 brother, where he sounds exasperated, but we know, from having seen the film before, that he actually enjoys all of this. So then we have this ostensible flashback to when Kyoan was walking to school with Taniguchi and Kunikita earlier that day. This scene is mostly to develop the status quo between the characters, so we'll know when it changes, but it does do that one thing that they did throughout the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, where Kyoan would say something to the audience, and it wouldn't be really clear if he said it aloud to the characters within his world, or just thought it within his head to us. So when Taniguchi kind of smugly right at the camera, we're unsure whether he was okay with Kyoan being a quirky little bastard and saying that line, or he's okay with Kyoan being silent and not saying anything. We have a mention of the date as well, once again, as it's important to the plot of the film, but we also have the very dull color palette. There's overcast skies, the muted greens, the gray of the car and the road and the building, and that's going back to our color and light theory, which we'll see later as Kyoan enters the clubroom. And the first thing to really shatter that color theory is Mikuru's just garish scarf. And here we still have that continuation of establishing the status quo. So all the preceding scenes were just a build-up introducing all the other characters around the one that you know you've been waiting for the whole time. And you know it's getting close as Kyoan gives the introduction to Haruhi. As he approaches the club room, I do want to take note of the lighting and how we're going from this dull color palette. As he creaks open the door, suddenly this warm, glowing light pours out of the room. But when he looks inside, you're expecting this huge reveal as Kyoan just set you up, introducing Haruhi. Haruhi's absent, and we find out that either her radiance has left the club room in this state of brightness, or it's coming from the other member in the club room. This is a visual design trick that the movie is going to pull numerous times throughout its runtime. It will set up either Yuki or Haruhi as the source of illumination and color to Kyoan, but we'll talk more about that later. I do really want to emphasize the change in tone that they use here right before Haruhi's introduction. The very slow, very quiet moment that Yuki and Kyoan share right before exactly what we were expecting. We pause on that beat for a joke, and then we get another one of Kyoan's internal-external sarcasm quips. There's a somewhat awkward CGI transition going from Nagato to their entire world, and then the intro comes in. This intro obviously represents everything that Haruhi's about. There's lots of movement, color, it's loud, and having it come in right after she's introduced is no coincidence at all. I think there's something here, maybe I'm just extrapolating a little too hard, there's something here about Haruhi teaching Nagato how to behave. Within those lyrics, within her kicking Kyoan off the radiator, Haruhi's prerogative has always been action. She may not know why she's doing something or what exactly she's doing, but she's going to do it anyway. Nagato, on the other hand, has never actually acted on her own. So where does Nagato get the courage or the gall to completely change the world and rewrite history? I think it's in moments like these, where she learns from Haruhi. So Haruhi pushes the theme song out of the screen, and we're back in the world filled to the brim with color and light. One interesting thing you should note about these scenes, now that Haruhi's joined the movie, is that every shot focusing on Haruhi portrays Haruhi front and center. She's in the middle of the screen as she's in the middle of the world. Everything else revolves around her. Compare that with how Yuki was earlier. She's always marginalized, and for the rest of the movie she's put off towards the side or the corner of the frame. That is, the director's use of the camera highlights certain aspects of each character's personality. I think we get this scene mostly to see how Haruhi interacts with the rest of the SOS Brigade. While she's often categorized as insensitive or a bitch, Haruhi does ask everyone if they are free, and shows a little sensitivity here. I don't know whether that's growth over the course of the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, or she's simply made out to be someone she's not. But I like her in this scene. Kyoan actually mentions that himself. When Haruhi starts pulling things out of her bag, it really represents everything we've been talking about with the light and color and vibrancy of Haruhi Suzumiya. It's telling that this is the scene when Kyoan is having his inner struggle later on in the movie that he references back to. Everything that Haruhi pulls out of her orange bag represents everything that Haruhi stands for. One final bit here on this scene as Haruhi asks Kyoan about Santa Claus. It really is a coda to the story of the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, which starts with Kyoan pondering how stupid it is to believe in Santa Claus. Of course, Haruhi believes in Santa Claus. That hat may be the only pink and teal thing in this entire film. With the levity of this scene, I really want to point out, Kyoan's reaction here makes him so relatable to us. Um, we understand what he's feeling right now, even though he's not saying anything. And if the movie is trying to make us be one with Kyon and feel how he feels, then having him react rationally in situations like that furthers that end. Let's slow it down right here as we come across another one of the movie's visual themes. Right as Kyon says closed space or Shinjin, the movie cuts to a reflection of the two in the window of the school. They're talking about an alternate reality or a parallel world, and we're seeing an alternate reality or a mirror world. This isn't something that the movie does once or twice or thrice, it does it at least 10 times throughout the film. And we'll point them out as we go along. In their conversation, Itsuki points out how Haruhi Suzumiya has changed over the course of the series. He even brings up our theory from the opening that Haruhi's behavior has had some effect on Yuki. With the reintroduction of Haruhi back into the scene, we see here that not only does she stand for the light, the color, the vibrancy, but she also kind of stands for the humor in the film. That's one important point when we look at the differences between Yuki and Haruhi going forward. The movie then uses a first-person point of view from Kyon lying on the floor, looking up at the two women. Take a look here at the cinematography. The camera up until now has been very stationary, allowing the characters to walk across the screen. What we have here when the action picks up are very quick cuts and a very jarring movement. Look at the way Haruhi whips Kyon back and forth, and the camera follows along, exaggerating that whip, going further than Kyon flips forward and coming further back. It increases the amount of movement, increases the effect of the animation, and it gives this wonderful feel of the strength of Haruhi. Also notice here, she's again pushing Kyon out of the middle of the screen, pushing other things away from the center, where she deserves to be. While the camera's been bouncing around to offer different perspectives of the club and different reaction shots of the members, it every so often will jump to the perspective of Kyon, lest we forget who we should be following and empathizing with. In this moment, we as the viewer feel arousal and embarrassment and shock just as much as Kyon does, and that's what I think makes this scene so effective. In the words of Kyon, well, there you have it. We're going to see how long it takes for this fair use analysis to get a copyright takedown notice. In relevant news, the entirety of the Haruhi franchise was recently obtained by Funimation for distribution in North America. Odds are we're going to see a re-release of the movie sometime in the future, and maybe that will make it so that more people will be able to get a hold of a DVD copy of this movie. Alright, part 2 coming soon.